On today's show, we break down the top 5 prospect performances of last week, highlighted by 16-year-old Viggo Björck scoring in his Hockeyallsvenskan debut.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I'm your host, Sebastian High, the USHL scout over at Elite Prospects, and today's episode is an exciting one. I hope you're all enjoying your days so far, whether you're listening to this in the morning, evening, afternoon, or anywhere in between. In today's Rinkside Roundup, breaking down the top 5 prospects of the past week is a particularly fun one in my view. This is based on an article series over at Elite Prospects that comes out every single Tuesday, breaking down the top 5 prospects. And it's an article series shared between myself and Hattie Kalakash, the former co-host here on the podcast, and we take turns every other week. And this edition of the article was written by myself and is highlighted by Viggo Björck, the 16-year-old who scored in his debut for Djurgården IF in Hockeyallsvenskan and has led the entire J20 Nacional in scoring this season with 68 points and 25 goals in just 38 games. And this is a player that is very exciting. So we'll be dedicating the entire first segment to diving into how he plays the game, why he's a name to keep an eye on, and when you might be hearing more from him. Then in the second segment, we're going to look at a big 6'6" defenseman in the 2025 NHL draft class, Radim Mrtka of the Seattle Thunderbirds, who's been scoring at a point-a-game pace while playing really, really good two-way hockey and 30 minutes a night. Really big role and very good performances. Then we'll move on to Bradley Nadeau of the Chicago Wolves in the AHL, picked by the Carolina Hurricanes, who's been scoring 13 goals in his last 19 games since returning from the World Junior Championships and has just been lethal, especially on the power play from the left circle. Then in the third segment, we're going to wrap up the show by looking at Liam Greentree, the third leading scorer in the OHL, and a pick of the Los Angeles Kings, who had 6 points and 3 goals last week. And finally, last but not least, Luca Cagnoni, the dynamic, intelligent, playmaking left defenseman of the San Jose Barracuda in the AHL. He had another very good week with 3 points in 3 games. So sit back, relax, and let's dive straight into this first segment on Viggo Björck. Björck is a 5'9", 165-pound right shot forward. He can play at center. He can play on the wing. He understandably played on the wing in his Hockeyallsvenskan debut for Djurgården, where he scored a goal in a 6-1 victory over Västerås. Amidst a spree of scoring at the J20 level, immediately after getting sent back to the juniors, he scored 4 goals and 6 points over Rögle's J20 group in an 8-0 victory. He's been really dominant, and that's carried over to his international duty at the U18 Five Nations tournament, playing against teams like the NTDP, Finland, Switzerland, and Czechia. He scored 6 points in 4 games, again, as a 16-year-old player at a U18 or U20 or pro level. This player has been really, really good at all of them. So let's delve into the why, because it is really, really interesting. Viggo Björck is a high motor, exciting kind of forward. He's intelligent, he's pacey, and he's supremely skilled. This is a player with a lot of nuance in his decision-making, in his habits. He took very variable routes in transition in terms of supporting the play in his Hockeyallsvenskan debut. He played 10 minutes, but was given really good line mates in that opportunity, including the ageless wonder, 41-year-old Patrick Thoresen, who leads the team in scoring and is just a constant threat in terms of motor and pace and has really impressive playmaking and handling ability. He elevated Björck significantly in this game and allowed him to play in a bit more space and to be really cunning off puck to find those pockets, which he did. He did so in transition. He did so off the cycle. This is a player that's able to find those spaces against very good competition. And a lot of that goes down to strong anticipation, exceptional scanning habits, especially for a 16-year-old player. His head is on a swivel constantly, scanning the ice around him. And on top of that, he's a player that with a puck on his stick has elite level puck skills, whether it's the hard release and a versatile release in a variety of manners, whether it's a snapshot, a wrist shot, a one-timer. He's a versatile goal scorer, but it's the handling and the playmaking, I think, that really shone both in my viewings at the J20 level and at Hockey Allsvenskan, because the way he thinks the game, the pace shifts he implements in his on-puck displays, and just his ability to lose defenders, his evasiveness with his pace and mobility and handling skill. He's very difficult to dispossess of the puck. And we even saw Hockey Allsvenskan professional defensemen and forwards struggle to take the puck and possession back from Viggo Björck. And that's a very exciting thing, especially at this level. So Björck is a 2026 draft eligible prospect. So he's not eligible this season, but he is next year. So it's the same draft as the Gavin McKennas of the world, for instance. I think Gavin McKenna being there will make being selected first overall very difficult for a player like Viggo Björck, but still he is one of the contenders at the very top end of the class, alongside players like Ryan Rubrick and Ivar Stenberg. I think that you could also throw in guys like Ethan Belchelts and Mikey Burchild from the NTDP in there. There's a lot of talent at the top end of next year's class, but I think Viggo Björck may just as well be the second best among those. He's so dynamic, he's so intelligent, and he's up to 70 points in 39 games now that I checked the updated stats. He's just constantly scoring points in J20. Been combining very well with his older brother, Wilson Björck, at the J20 level, who is the second leading scorer in the entire league, and he's also 19 years old, which helps a little bit. But still, Viggo Björck is a player that stood out significantly in my viewings. If you have the opportunity to watch him play and haven't yet, I would definitely recommend you to do so. He's a very fun player to watch, very easy to kind of fall in love with as a player, with how he takes on every shift with intensity, while also creating consistent advantages through intelligence and skill. And being so engaged in all three zones and opportunistic in his rush creation, in his cycle creation. This is a guy that I think is understandably getting a lot of hype at the moment with this first professional game. And he's a player that just completely lit up the historic Hofut Arena for Djurgården. It was a home game against Västerås, and on top of that, he scored his goal to make it a 5-1 lead. It wasn't necessarily a goal in a tight part of that game, and it was a rout by the end of it. And yet still the entire arena exploded in celebration when he scored that goal. It means a lot to him. It means a lot to the fans and to the team for him to be succeeding at this level, at this age. He's a really, really exciting piece, and just one of many in Djurgården at the minute. If you add in Victor Eklund and Anton Frondell, you have three of the best exports of Djurgården of the last half decade on the team at the same time for a game. That is very fun. That's very exciting stuff for this organization, for Swedish hockey in general. And if you're just a hockey fan that likes to see these nice stories folding out in front of you. But that wraps things up for this first segment. In the next one, we'll delve into Radim, Mrtka, and Bradley Nadeau's games. But first, a quick message from our sponsors. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fueled for longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in shell variety are a classic favorite. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit Wonderful Pistachios to learn more. All right, let's keep this episode rolling here in the second segment, starting off with Radim Mrtka of the Seattle Thunderbirds, and an eligible prospect in this 2025 class, as he has been jumping up draft boards very consistently over the past few months, and we're going to delve a bit into why. If you want a full detailed breakdown of how he plays the game of hockey, I'm going to link in the cards up above on the right hand side the full scouting report that I recorded on him last week, delving into his tools, his profile, his habits, his projection. Anything you're interested in is likely in that video if you just want to focus on the prospect. But let's look into his performances of the past week, because he had an excellent week, in my opinion. 4 assists in 3 games with the Seattle Thunderbirds. He's a player that got involved offensively, but really made his value most shown on the defensive side of the puck. He's activating more liberally. He's exploring his offensive game, and he's getting the game time to do so, with playing 27 to 30 minutes on many nights. And yet still it is the rush defending, the cycle defending, the physicality, the stick work, the intelligence on that side of the ice that consistently impressed me, and that left me really understanding why this is a player that is garnering some interest in the top 10 of this NHL draft. He's not a player that's currently in my personal top 10 list as of right now, but I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up in that range by season's end, because that defensive intelligence combined with his level of mobility at his size and his range, his stick work, his sense of timing and anticipation, the control and nature of his gap management, and the shrewd timing of his lunges for the puck or using his body to just crush the other players into the boards, smother them out of the play, and then recover the puck afterwards. There's a lot of refined and strong physical habits, as well as mental habits underlying those on his defensive implications. And he's a player that I think has stabilized the Seattle Thunderbirds in a really impressive way since his arrival. He's played 30 games with the team now, and he's been such a stabilizing force, playing massive minutes and also growing his game at both ends of the ice in that role. It's been excellent for his development to move over to North America, to learn the North American game on North American ice, but doing so in huge minutes rather than playing 10 a night like he was in the Czech Pro League up until this stage. I watched the game of Radim Mrtka against the Kelowna Rockets, and he just absolutely shut them down last Tuesday. Really dynamic performance from the blue line, and that dynamism for me mainly showed off puck and defensively. So controlled, so intelligent, so difficult to get around, and a player who contained his opposition extremely effectively. So Radim Mrtka is one of the top 5 prospects of last week. Moving on, however, we're going to look at the AHL, and Bradley Nadeau of the Carolina Hurricanes, playing with the Chicago Wolves, had an exceptional week of hockey last week. He only scored 2 goals, and his team lost all their games, but I tuned into 2 of those games, and he was a real difference-making factor on his shifts, showing his intelligence and the goal-scoring threat that made him one of the latest risers on my board in the 2023 NHL draft class. Combining smooth hands, quick processing, and a wicked release, Nadeau's a natural goal scorer, and he's been used in his favorite spot on the power play on the left circle to be a one-timer threat as a right shot so far this season with the Chicago Wolves, which is not how he was used with Team Canada at the World Junior Championship, where they were expecting the 5'11", 172-pound forward to be the bumper on the first power play. That's not his game. in terms of playing within contact at all times. He's at his best, and he has a little bit of space to function within when he can be that one-timer shooting threat, when he's not needing to withstand big physical players in order to get a shot off every single time. That's where he succeeds, and he's been showing that in the AHL since returning from the World Junior Championships. As I mentioned in the intro, he has 13 goals in 18 games since returning to Chicago in the AHL. And that's also come with a point per game pace on top of that, with 19 points in those 18 games. He's been playing big minutes. He's been relied on heavily. And on top of that, he's been solidifying things defensively a little bit. He hasn't been playing much on the penalty kill this season, had a couple games with that earlier on in the campaign, but since then, he's been really an even strength and power play kind of specialist, but still, his active stick work, his anticipation, his intelligence have served him well in terms of tracking back defensively, supporting his teammates, and then breaking the puck out with control afterwards and rushing back up the ice to create something off the rush. He has the speed to transition very quickly from defense to offense, and he's not a player that relies on cherry picking tendencies to find himself in offensive positions. There's a lot of projectable habits with this player. He's a player I've really enjoyed watching, and I think that the Carolina Hurricanes have gotten a gem with Bradley Nadeau, having picked him at 30th overall in 2023. I think he was a very clear top 20 pick in that class, with just tremendous upside. And the Hurricanes are going to be a great organization for him to refine his talents in. Yet another example of the Carolina Hurricanes getting extremely good value with their draft selections by selecting undersized, skilled, intelligent players who, in their eyes, fall to their slot, who shouldn't be available anymore, and just going out and picking that player consistently. They've done it with players like Nikita Artemonov. They've done it with Jackson Blake, who's playing some really good hockey in the NHL this season, and a variety of other depth and higher end selections throughout the draft, especially in the last 5 to 7 years. The drafting has been excellent coming out of Carolina, and Bradley Nadeau is no exception to that. The Canes were exceptionally excited to get him at that slot. They were not expecting him to be available when they went and picked him, and things have gone very well in his development ever since, with an excellent D+1 campaign at the University of Maine last season, scoring 46 points in 37 games as a college rookie and signing his ELC right out of that campaign. And he's now up to 19 goals and 34 points in 40 games in his AHL rookie season. He just keeps on scoring at every level, and these massive jumps of quality of competition haven't really been able to dam up that scoring. He just keeps doing it. He keeps finding a way. And I'm curious to see if we're going to see him in the NHL as soon as next season. He still has to grow his game physically. There's still habits he has to refine, consistency he has to find. But still, I think he's a player that we could see in a call-up kind of situation. In terms of finding a consistent, like, 82 game role for the Canes, I'd have to wait another year, I think, to make that prediction. But still, a player I think has some upside as a depth call-up. And if he gets called up with his goal scoring skill, even in a depth capacity, he might make it difficult on the Canes to send him right back down. I'd love to see it happen as soon as this season, but maybe we're going to have to be patient for a little bit longer here. But that wraps up this second segment. In the next one, we're going to wrap up the show looking at Liam Greentree of the LA Kings, as well as Luca Cagnoni of the San Jose Sharks, who've been scoring a lot of points in the OHL and AHL respectively. But first, a quick message from our sponsors. Alrighty, let's wrap up the show here in the final segment, starting with Liam Greentree of the Windsor Spitfires in the OHL and a draft pick of the Los Angeles Kings at 26th overall this past draft. He's up to 38 goals and 92 points in 53 games this season, having already surpassed his 90-point campaign from last year in 11 less games. He's also 2 goals ahead of his 36 goals last year. He has been scoring a bunch, and it's been a very different story of the season for Windsor compared to last season. This year, Windsor has already notched a playoff spot. They're second in their division. They have the third leading scorer in the entire league with Liam Greentree. And this is coming after a year where Greentree captained the Windsor Spitfires to a second last position finish in the entire league, ahead of only the truly, really rough last year, Niagara Ice Dogs. So a lot wasn't going right last season, but is going right this year. A big part of that has been the arrival of Ilya Protosh from the USHL, who's become Greentree's right-hand man in terms of creating offense. They've combined for a lot of give and go sequences and are often involved in each other's goals. Protosh is up to 86 points in 49 games, just a couple behind Greentree and not really far behind him in terms of points per game. So those two have done the bulk of the scoring for the Windsor Spitfires. The team's third leading scorer is Noah Morneau, a left winger with 57 points in 54 games. So those two players are really doing the heavy lifting offensively. But to go back to Greentree, this is a guy with elite level intelligence, elite level shooting, elite level handling, elite level passing in flashes. That's become a lot more consistent this campaign. And all of that with subpar skating, but intelligent route selection and a really good anticipation to keep himself in position. He plays the game a little bit like a Mark Stone in terms of compensating for weaker feet, in terms of being very proactive off puck, finding himself in those good areas and getting below the play again defensively to help support his team. The defensive habits have been a strength with Greentree this season, but the dynamic upside is quite obvious in terms of the elite level tools, the creativity, the human highlight reel that Greentree becomes at his absolute best. There's a lot to love with this prospect, and I think it was excellent value for the Los Angeles Kings at 26th overall. I mean, to remind you, Liam Greentree isn't just a dynamic offensive player who's third in league scoring, with this excellent shooting and playmaking and handling ability and high-end intelligence. He's also 6'3", 216 pounds as a right winger. He has a big frame and he's able to use it. And he's shown a little bit more of his power forward flashes this season, lowering the shoulder and driving the net, forcing his way to the dangerous areas and taking defenders with them if they don't want to let him through. He's a powerful player who's been showing that physical side of him more and more and more. I still love to see a bit more consistency of that, especially on the defensive side of the puck, but still we've seen significant progress from Greentree this season, and he's certainly a prospect with top six upside in Los Angeles, who I think could be an NHLer within 2.5 years. I don't think it's going to take him all that much longer, and I would really love to see him playing professional hockey next season in the AHL. I mean, he turns 20 on January 1st next year, so he's not yet eligible to start the campaign in with the Ontario Reign, but I'm curious to see what choices LA makes for his development next year, because he seems to be just too good for the OHL. And I mean, we've seen it with players like Andrew Crystal, who gets sent back for another year after having already been too good for the league. It can get ugly for the whole league after a little while. I mean, Crystal is flirting with 2.5 points a game at the moment, especially since his trade to the Spokane Chiefs from Kelowna. But finally, to wrap up the show, let's talk about Luca Cagnoni of the San Jose Barracuda, a 5'9", 181-pound left shot defenseman who was drafted 123rd overall in the fourth round in the 2023 NHL draft. And he's already up to 34 points in 45 AHL games in his rookie season. And he is playing huge minutes as an AHL rookie. He's playing 23, 24, 25 minutes a night some nights with the Barracuda. He's being trusted with a very big responsibility there. And beyond just those big minutes, the ability to create offensive sequences, both in space, in transition, but also against more compact defensive structures off the cycle, has been very impressive this year for Cagnoni. He has mobile feet. He's constantly activating from the blue line. He's moving east to west, and he's using those changes in passing angles to find intricate passing lanes, to attempt really dynamic plays through multiple layers of pressure. He's been exploring the boundaries of his playmaking game this season, and just the on-puck implications, the composure, the intelligence, the creativity. the handling skill that enables a lot of that as well, have all been notable strengths this season. And to show all of that as an AHL rookie at 20 years old, as an undersized left shot defenseman against very physical competition on a night in, night out basis, playing 20 plus minutes every single night. Yeah, it's been an excellent rookie season for Cagnoni. A lot to like with this prospect. And if you're a San Jose Sharks fan, I think that the left side of your defensive core moving forward, it looks so solid with Sam Dickinson and Luca Cagnoni. I'd love for them to add in a big shot right D to help solidify things further. And I think Radim Mrtka could be a really interesting fit, even though in terms of draft selection, I'm not quite sure if that's going to work. But in terms of style that San Jose needs in their lineup and what Mrtka would bring, especially paired with a player like Cagnoni or even a Sam Dickinson, I think that would be a really interesting fit. But that wraps up this show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. What did you think of the episode? What were your thoughts on these 5 top performers of last week's action? Which players did I miss? Which performers stood out to you in your own viewings from any level? I mean, not the NHL because there was no NHL action last week, but every other league that was playing. Please let me know in the comments down below. If you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please do make us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, you can head on over to Locked On Fantasy Hockey, where Flip and Steel break down everything going on in the fantasy world for you, and where you can learn to build not only the most competitive, but the most sustainable fantasy roster to achieve your fantasy hockey dreams. But that wraps things up. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Sebastian High, and I hope that you tune back in very, very soon.